So in honor of the new Mandalorian movie coming out soon, it's finally time to show off my newly finished Boba Fett helmet. In this video, I'll show you how I made Boba Fett's iconic helmet, the trials and tribulations that went into making it, and how you can make a helmet just like this one. And without further ado, let's get right into the video. So starting everything off, we have the printing, and y'all know how I get down in these videos. First things first, we're gonna talk about how I printed it, then how I sanded it, then how I painted it, then how I assembled it all together to make this iconic helmet come to life. But before we get into all that, I'm going to talk about briefly the settings that I use and what settings that I use for every single one of my projects. Since some of you guys have been asking like what settings you use and what settings are optimal, I'm going to just briefly go quickly through every single setting that I use. So first things first, we have the quality. My layer height always adjusts. I usually use 0.2 layer height for like objects like the Boba Fett helmet, but if I have something that's more detailed, say like Boba Fett's gun or the jetpack, I would go down to 0.18 layer height. It just honestly depends on how detailed the object is and what details I need to use to make this come to life. Moving on, the seam line is always in the back. I always have the seam line in the back because most objects I print, the back side is never seen in the cosplay. It's always in the front. So I always put the seam line in the back no matter what. And moving on, all of these doesn't really matter. I do use ironing. If you know from my previous videos using Kira, I always use ironing, and ironing on Orca slicers is a little bit different. It's a lot more like creative. You can mix and match things. Usually I just use it as a base. I turn it on, I use rectangular, and the ironing is just perfectly fine. Everything else like the wall generator, the walls and surfaces, I don't really mess with. The bridging and overhangs, you could mess with those if you want. I just don't touch those because everything is pretty much simplified. Orca basically looks like an airplane cockpit, but once you're like really into it, it's not that hard to really figure out. It's pretty user friendly. Strength wise, I go into 3 walls. You could adjust your walls. In this project, my Boba Fett helmet, I did not want the helmet to be too heavy on my head, so I used 3 walls because everything else like padding and all the other accessories were going into the base of the helmet. I did not want it to be too heavy on my head. I'm already wearing a bunch of stuff like the jetpack, the gun, all the armor, so I did not want this to be heavy at all. You can adjust it to your liking. I use 3 walls, especially since the prop may not be as strong. 3 walls is pretty good for a helmet, but if you want to go up to 5 just to have that security of the strength or your prop being stronger, you can do that as well. I didn't really mess with any of these. Infill, I use 10% infill on this. You can go up, you can go down depending on what you want to do. I usually use 3 walls 10% on all of my helmets in every single one of my videos. 3 walls 10% is mainly the baseline, and I use gyroid. Cubic subdivision, as I kept saying, doesn't work. I don't know why it doesn't work. It never works for any of my printers. It just doesn't work. I switched to gyroid, never looked back. So gyroid is the main one that I use, and then everything else like the advanced and all that stuff I don't really mess with. I keep it base. Then my speed, now you guys might be thinking you can go way faster than that. You have a K1 Max. I don't need to go fast. I wasn't in a hurry to get this done. I just made a cruise. I wanted the quality to be as perfect as possible, so I left it at 100 and 105, and then my outer wall and inner wall speed is 50-50, and then everything else is at 100 or 50. I don't really go up to 150 besides the support because I want the supports to get done faster because I don't care about the quality of it, but I did want everything else to have a baseline. My overhang speed, everything else like that, acceleration is all the same. The jerk, the advance, all that stuff I don't mess with because you don't really need to mess with it. It's up to you if you want to really get into those settings. I usually don't. For the support, obviously you enable the support. I use tree support auto. Now I know Orca Slicer has a thing with the supports. You can use it to actually go in and like manually put in supports yourself. I didn't need to do that personally. I just kept it normal, kept it base, and it didn't matter. I use tree support. My angle's at 30. You can adjust that accordingly. And then my raft, I use 2 rafts on this. In the future, I learned that you don't need rafts. You don't need to put any rafts down. I did use 2 rafts on this, 2 layers for the raft. I wanted it to stick on the bed more and more. Later on, I realized that I didn't really need to do that, but I just did it anyway for this project. Everything else I didn't touch. And then the multi-material, I don't touch that at all. All of this stuff like the skirt and the brim, I didn't touch that. You could throw a brim in there, you could throw a skirt if you need to, but I didn't touch any of that. And sorry if I'm going a little bit fast. I just wanted to keep it brief because in my other videos I cover the settings as well, and I know a couple of you guys have been asking like, yo, what settings do you use to get the best quality? What settings should I be using? What software should I be using? So I wanted just to briefly quickly explain that, so when we jump into the actual helmet and actually how I made it through this software, it wouldn't be confusing for anybody. So now that you guys know the settings that I use, let's get into how I actually printed out the helmet itself on the K1 Max. It took a day and 15 hours. This estimate is right. I had it going slow, going calm, and I'll throw up a B-roll on the screen of how it printed out and going up on itself, but nothing too crazy here. I did support block a lot in here. I support block the entirety of the inside of the hollow part of the helmet. You do not need supports on that part because it's going to go up on itself as it overhangs and overarcs into its final form. You do not need supports on that. You also realistically don't need supports in the eyes, but I did because I had a little overhang, but realistically you you don't need it. I just wanted that extra sense of security. And then for the sides, I had a little bit of support blockers there because I didn't want the support going all the way around, which it was, because when I first sliced this, the supports were literally everywhere. It took like 3 days and I did not want that. I wanted to cut the time down as much as I can while being secure enough that it would actually work out on the printer and not fail. So that was basically it there. It just went straight up on itself, had a lot of support blockers, nothing too crazy here. A day and 15 hours is not that bad for how big the helmet actually is when you actually see it in person. That's basically it, just going straight up, going straight up. It just went back and forth and back and forth. Nothing too crazy like details wise as well that it had to struggle with. It just had one way up. It's just like a bowl. It just went one way up and it did all the details, and all the accessories weren't obviously on it. This is just the base, so all I had to do was go straight up and that was it. Now we're going to get into all the accessories that make the Boba Fett helmet what it is, starting it off with the little back plate on the back of his helmet. This was nothing crazy at all. As you can see here, they're all basically stood up the exact same because I wanted it to be the exact same way. Always print standing up because you maximize your quality and you do retain a little bit of the strength. It won't be as strong as if you were printing flat. What I'm looking for here is mainly quality, because everything, all of these accessories are going to glue on. Always print standing up. You maximize your quality while retaining a little bit of the strength, but not as much as laying down. This right here was pretty simple to do. I just had it standing up. I had it on a raft as well. I had it on two raft layers, and then I had the tree supports go up on itself. Nothing crazy here. It only took me 2 hours to make this. These were all printed on both my Creality K1 Max and my Creality Ender 3 V3 Plus, and I'm not sure which is which. They're both basically the same. I forgot which object was printed on what. So this was printed on either the K1 Max or the V3 Plus. You will see some B-roll of all the accessories that I do have on the K1 Max or on the V3 Plus, but one of the two had this. It only took 2 hours. Nothing crazy here. It just went straight up on itself, and that was basically it. Now moving on, we have the little right earpiece that sits on the bottom that connects with the entire antenna. Same thing here. It was always all printed standing up. Nothing crazy here. I just laid it on its flat face. I put it on 2 raft layers yet again. I'm now realizing I did not need to use any rafts. I know I didn't need to use it at all, but I did. I had it on this raft right here. It is printed standing up. Tree supports lifted it up, and nothing crazy here. It only took 1 hour and 40 minutes. All of these were really quick to print out because they're all small and they all connect together to make a bigger piece, so it wasn't that hard at all. Moving on from that, we have the little hidden antenna hole. Same thing here, printed standing up. Had it on 2 layers of raft. Had it with the tree supports. Nothing crazy here at all. Wasn't hard to sand any of these either because they're all very small and I could just hand sand them very quickly. Only took 1 hour and 20 minutes, and that was it for that. Now we move on to the actual antenna piece. This was printed laying flat. I was not going to print this standing up whatsoever because it would not have worked at all. So I printed it laying flat. I retained the strength. This doesn't need that much quality anyway because I'm going to just sand it back down and make it smooth. Look at this, like it doesn't really have any details, but this is how it's printed. I had it again on rafts, and then I had the tree supports line up straight right here, and nothing too crazy. It took less time than everything else, which is very surprising. This was very easy to do. I believe I printed this on my V3 Plus. Now I can be for sure on that, but nothing crazy here. Just went straight up, and yeah, that was it. Now moving on to the actual head of the antenna, the little top part piece. You guys know what this is. Y'all know what this is. So moving on to the head of the antenna, same thing here. I had it printing standing up. I had it laying on its back so it can go straight up simply because I did not want it laying flat. As you guys know, always print standing up. Y'all get the memo. So I just had it just like this. I had it on the rafts as well. Supports right there. This part was smooth. It didn't need any supports or anything. So I put the seam line right in this back part because it was very easy to sand the seam line off. But everything else was pretty simple. Tree supports going up. It only took 1 hour and 8 minutes. Each one of these accessories are so small. They only took 1 hour to 2 hours max. Nothing too crazy here. Again, just standing up, always standing up. Very simple. Now again, moving on from that, we have the ear right cover, which is going to be on the outside of the ear. This was the same thing, standing up on the raft, 2 layers. Didn't need any supports because it's just a flat object going up. Not a lot of details either, so the quality didn't really matter, and that was basically it for that. And now last but not least, we have the left side of the ear that has that long giant cover on it. This was the same thing as everything else, basically combined into one. It took 3 hours for this because it's obviously a bigger object. I had it laying flat. I had it on the 2 raft layers. I had it with the supports going up, and that was basically it. Nothing crazy. This entire thing did not take a lot of filament. The only thing that took a lot of filament was the actual base of the helmet itself, granted because it's the full thing, but all of these accessories did not take a lot of filament. I think they combined for probably 70 to 100 grams of filament. It did not take a lot of filament to make this at all, and I'm very happy that it didn't because that helmet took a lot of filament. It took about 600 grams to make the actual base of the helmet, but all of these accessories that make the helmet what it is did not take a lot at all, and I'm very thankful for it. But that is going to be it for all of the printing. Everything was very simple and straightforward. The only thing that was hard was sizing the helmet. I went through a few trials and tribulations with sizing the helmet. Let me get to that actually. I almost forgot to talk about that. When sizing this helmet, I went through a few trials and tribulations. I had it at 100% the first time, and I tried to see what it was, and it wasn't working. So my brother did have a few mess ups of his own with his Mandalorian helmet. So he said, just compare it with the Mandalorian helmet and see what you can get from there. And we both came to the conclusion that 95% was the sweet spot. We tried 90%, we tried 100%, and he told me go with 95 and see how that fits you. Try 95. So it was his idea. Shout out to my brother. I'll throw him on the screen again. It was his idea to go with 95%, which fit. We did try different other methods. Basically, it was trial and error, which is not good with a helmet this big, but we had to do it. We had no other option. So I did use my sizing head. If y'all seen my last videos with my helmets, I did use my sizing head, and I seen what to go with and seen what to do, and 95% worked. I'm glad it did. So that is going to be all for the printing section. Now let's get into my most hated section, the sanding. Now moving on, we have sanding. Starting it off, how do I always start it off? Y'all tell me this time. Y'all tell me. We got 60 grit sandpaper. Boom, right there. Sand as much as you can. Like I say in every single one of my videos, I started off with 80 grit usually, but now I'm starting to do 60 grit and going up from 60 all the way to 240, and it's been working for me the same way as 80 grit does. It's dealer's choice, but I like starting it from 60 grit. Moving on from that, y'all might have already guessed it, we have 80 grit sandpaper right here. Boom, continue sanding. 60 and 80 grit is kind of just roughing the project up, making sure all of everything is scuffed. Now you're going to start seeing those heavy layer lines kind of flatten out and disappear. You want to scuff it up as much as you possibly can. Just go crazy, just sand, go hard. Make sure, don't sand too much of the details. If you have details on the prop, do not sand because you don't want to, or do not sand the details off because you don't want to scuff up and mess up all the details of it, but sand as much as you can with those smoother parts and get those layer lines gone and disappearing. Moving on from there, we have 120 grit sandpaper right here. Sand. Now you're kind of sanding for the love of the game. You're getting anything that you missed. So there's going to be some spots that you missed with the sander. If you have a sander, if you're hand sanding, there's bound to be parts that you missed. So that 120 is there to kind of clean it up and get any of the spots that you didn't get originally earlier in the sanding process, and anything that you actually missed during the sanding process. The 120 grit is kind of going to get that. Moving on from there, we have the 150 grit sandpaper. Again, sand as much as you can. You're kind of again cleaning it up, sanding what you missed. At this point, your project should be scuffed. You should be having marks all over the place. You should not be seeing any layer lines, or not as much layer lines that you saw earlier in the sanding process. And at the beginning of the sanding process, you want to make sure everything is cooked and sanded down. And last but not least, we have my goat, my legend, the one, 240 grit sandpaper right here. Now you're kind of clean up sanding again. Sand. This is kind of like the last of the last sanding. You're kind of going over with the dry, or the last of the dry sanding phase at least. You're going over it, making sure everything is sanded down. The 240 is kind of going to flatten everything to an even rate and get everything cooked as much as possible. And at this point, your prop should be sanded down. If I have a picture, it should look something like this. Always sanded down. I prefer to sand in black filament, and I would recommend to sand in black filament because you can actually see what you're sanding. Blue, red works as well. Never tried green. Black, blue, and red are the filaments that I would recommend you guys use because you can actually see what you're sanding. I do not recommend white because you don't know what you're sanding and you don't know what you're looking at. A lot of people do print and write. I just wouldn't recommend it. Black, gray, blue, and red are the main filament colors that I use, and it helps me get through the sanding process. Now, once you're done with all that sanding, this is just the end of the dry sanding phase. You want to Bondo. Now, before you Bondo, I like to wash my print. A lot of people don't like to wash the prints. My brother doesn't wash the print because you're going to be sanding down the Bondo anyway, and you're going to already have that dust. I just like to sand, or to wash the prints down to make sure everything is cleaned off and ready to go for the Bondo. That's just me personally. It's up to personal preference. You can do that if you want, but I wash the print. Then from washing the print, I get myself Bondo glazing and spot putty right there. Boom, get yourself some of this stuff right here. I'll also throw it up on the screen right here. Bondo glazing and spot putty is going to fill in those imperfections. It's going to get what you missed or what you couldn't possibly get with the actual dry sanding phase. So it's going to go over. I recommend to get a piece of foam. If you have a piece of foam like this laying around, and then put it on the piece of foam and then scrub it on there. You can do it with your finger, get some gloves and put it on there. Put on some Bondo. There is a method that I stopped using from this guy right here. He does 2 cups or 2 times of Bondo and 1 times of acetone, and he mixes it together with the Bondo and acetone mix and then puts it on there. I just like doing it the natural way. You can do it that way as well. It is very, very, very productive. I did it for my Echo video. If you guys watch that video, I did it for that. All of those stuff. I did the Bondo acetone method, but you can do it however way you want. Just make sure to Bondo your print. Make sure the Bondo is all over. The Bondo dries very, very quickly, so keep that in mind because the Bondo will dry quick. Make sure it's all on there, and now you're gonna go back out again, sand again. I know you're not done. So once that Bondo is dry, once the Bondo is on there and it's clumped up all over, you're gonna go back out again with my goat. That's why he's my goat, the 240 sandpaper right here. So what this 240 is gonna do, make sure you wear a mask, make sure you wear gloves, make sure you wear an apron because this Bondo gets everywhere. It's gonna get in your lungs. You don't want that. Safety first. Just put a mask on, put everything you need on, and get to sand it. So once you're sanding it down, you're gonna see the 240 start to destroy everything. It's gonna destroy all of the Bondo and make sure it's smoothed down. You wanna sand it as much as possible because if you don't sand it, that's one mistake I had. Let me show you. I don't know if you guys are gonna be able to tell. There's all these little lumps and stuff right here that's on the helmet, and little like creases and lumps. That's because I didn't fully sand it. So take it from me, sand it as much as you can. I was always believed and taught that if you don't sand it and you have the Bondo covering the layer lines, it'll work. But my brother's like, no, you want to sand it all down because once you sand the Bondo all down, it will work in itself. The Bondo will seep to where you can't sand it no more. It will seep in those crevices. So you don't gotta worry about that. You wanna sand it down because that's how you get those clumps and those uneven lumps. I messed up on that part. I should have sanded it way more. This is gonna give me my next point. Do not half-ass it at any point. Do not half-ass it. If you know that you didn't dry sand enough, go back and dry sand. If you know that you didn't Bondo enough, go back and put more Bondo on and then resand. Do not half-ass it because once you're done with these steps and you get to the painting step, you're not able to go back. So do not half-ass it. Learn from me as well. I messed up on that part of having the lumps and all that because I was always believed that leave a little bit of Bondo on there and you'll be fine. Don't do that. Get your 240, sand as much as possible. Make sure everything is sanded down. There's gonna be a lot of dust. There's gonna be a lot of particles everywhere, but you already put the Bondo on. You already put everything on. Sand that down and you're ready for the next step. And what is that next step, you may be asking? We got wet sanding. So once you're done with all that dry sanding, all that Bondo sanding, everything like that is done, you want to grab yourself Rust-Oleum filler primer. Now boom, I do know there's a lot of different primers on the market. There is Duplicolors primer, there's wood fillers, there's a lot of other primers on the market. Rust-Oleum filler primer has never served me wrong in the 4 years I've been doing this. In the 2 years I've been 3D printing, Rust-Oleum filler primer has never served me wrong. It's always done me wonders. I'm not gonna change on Rust-Oleum. I like Rust-Oleum filler primer. There's filler and sandable. That doesn't fill as much as the Rust-Oleum filler primer, but I like that. Spray it down with 3 good coats. That's exactly what I did for this helmet. I sprayed it down with 3 good coats. Make sure you coat it as much as possible. If you have a little bit of overrun, if you have a little bit of blotchiness, don't fret. It will only matter if you weren't going to wet sand after, but since we're wet sanding this, it doesn't matter if you have a little bit of imperfections because the wet sanding will make it perfect. So after you know that you just painted that down and you're letting it dry, let it cure. The primer takes not long at all to dry and cure. It takes like a few hours to dry and like a day to cure. Not even that. You can do it in 12 hours. You can get to wet sanding and it'll be perfectly fine. So it doesn't take long to cure at all. But once you're doing that, find yourself a place with a lot of water. I use the bathtub personally. I'm just gonna say that. I use the bathtub. My brother uses the sink. You can use the sink, you can use the bathtub, you can use whatever you have that has a lot of water in it and that you have a big prop that you need. Get that, and once you do that with the water, you wanna combine it with the 400 grit sandpaper right here. So with this 400, you wanna use the 400, you wanna put water on it. As you guys can see here, there's a lot of scuffs, but me sanding with the primer coming off of it. You wanna get that and you wanna just scrub it down as much as you can. If you have imperfections, go harder on the imperfections in the other. You're going to scrub it down. You're going to scrub a little bit down to the point where you're going to start seeing the Bondo again. Don't fret, that's fine. That means it just, the filler primer thinned a little bit out right there. It's perfectly fine. Those layer lines will disappear. Do not worry. But just go in, sand it down, give it a little good rub with the water. Make sure you have a lot of water. You're going to need this water on there. So make sure you just keep dipping it in the water and going back and forth. Dip it in the water, sand, dip it in the water, sand, and you will get a very, very smooth outcome. Boom, right there. You'll get a very, very smooth outcome with no layer lines whatsoever. So make sure when you do that, just keep getting the water, going back and forth. Water, boom, and sand it down as much as you possibly can, and you'll get a great, great outcome. And that is all that you have to do for the sanding. Make sure, again, I'm going to preface this one last time, do not half-ass it. If any point, the dry sanding phase, you didn't dry sand enough, go back and dry sand. You didn't Bondo enough, go back and Bondo. You didn't sand enough of the Bondo down, down, go back and do that, because once this primer is on there, you can sand the primer down, but you can't go back to those earlier stages of sanding. Just as when once you're done with the primer and you're onto the paint, you cannot go back. I highly recommend make sure go in and do not half-ass it whatsoever. Now moving on from that, we're on to the painting portion of this helmet. Starting it off, we have the metallic Rust-Oleum chrome paint. Boom. I love using this paint. I will never stop loving using this paint. As you guys know, my method is metallic chrome, white gloss first, metallic chrome. I'm now done with that. We're still moving on to graphite powder, because graphite powder does a lot better job, and this metallic does not like to stick. We started off with this metallic paint, then we moved on to the gloss clear coat right here on top of that metallic paint. Boom. The reason why we did that, my brother had an idea of, we want the metallic to stay, and we're going to put the green on top of that metallic. And as I wear the helmet, as I go through natural weathering, as we weather it ourselves as well, we're going to have that metallic show through, so it's like a battle worn, battle damaged thing. So moving on from that, we have the green that we used. This was already a satin green. Boom. This was already a satin green in and of itself, so it did not need a clear coat or anything like that. We just had it be green. But what we messed up on is we had this red as well. This was the original red that I used. Boom. But the red initially messed up. It messed up because nothing stuck onto the helmet itself. Everything was falling apart. So what we originally did was that idea of the metallic, then we're going to throw the red on first, then we're going to mask that off, then we're going to throw the green. So what I did was I didn't wait long enough, I believe. And also this metallic paint that I have right here does not like stuff going on top of it. If you're going to use this metallic paint, make sure it's the only thing that is on the prop. Nothing can go on top of it and nothing can go below it besides the white gloss. White gloss works on it for some reason. Oh no, things can go below it, nothing can go on top of it. Make sure this is the only thing you're using. We did exactly that. We threw the metallic on, we threw the clear coat on, then we threw the red on, then we threw the green on. But with the red, I masked off the red, and everything, when I masked it off, I peeled it, and it peeled the entire thing. I gave it everything it needed. I gave it time to dry. I gave it a good environment. I gave it everything it needed, and it still peeled for some reason. And we were wondering, why is it peeling? What is going on? Like, what's happening? What's going on? And the reason why, we found out that the metallic does not like stuff going on top of it. And even if you do put stuff on top of it, you need to give it ample time to dry. And even if you do that, it just won't work. So there's no way to possibly get that metallic to actually work and to actually stick and to be a base coat for something to go on top of that as an overcoat. So it just didn't work. We ended up getting red craft paint right here. Boom. We ended up getting the red craft paint and just painting over it. That worked. That was just a little fix. The satin stuck though. I don't know why that, I just don't get it. But the satin actually did stick, the green, but the red just wouldn't work whatsoever no matter what we did. Even this hand paint going on top of the actual helmet, as you guys can see here, it still didn't want to stick as much, but we just tried our best to get it to stick and to get it to work. And I think it ended up being a nice job. We could do this a lot better, but the thing is that we just didn't know about the metallic and all that, but now we do know, and it just didn't work. Moving on from that, we did another method with the green. As you guys can see on this helmet, there's a lot of rips and metallic parts all over it. My brother found out this method, and he is so smart for this. He said, I'm gonna put tape onto the helmet, and I'm gonna just rip the tape, and wherever we rip the tape is the masking you're gonna get. And that actually was the best idea I think he's ever came up with. He's gonna get mad at me for not gatekeeping this, because he said he was gonna gatekeep this because no one else does this, but now I'm telling the whole world, this method was beautiful, bro. He literally just threw tape on, and wherever it ripped is where it ripped. So as you guys can see there, wherever it ripped is where it ripped. You can rip as much as you want. You can have as much weathering as you want, as much anything as you want. Just keep ripping it. And that was all for the actual base of the helmet. Moving on to all the accessories, I had this metallic hand paint that I always use right here. I have this beige right here that I always use, and then I have a black and a white that I always use. I always go with Craft Smart or Folks Art or Deco Art. Those are the three main brands that I always go with. Michaels has all these hand paints for very cheap. They're not expensive at all. They're like $7 to $10 per bottle. They're very cheap. Sometimes you can get it cheaper, like $4, $5. That's for all the little accessories on the side right here. that you guys can see. And that was basically it for all of the painting. It was very, very difficult for some reason to paint this. I thought it was gonna be easy. I'm like, oh, we got the helmet. It ain't gonna be hard to paint this at all. It ain't gonna be hard to do that. This was mad difficult to do, mainly because we figured out the metallic doesn't stick. That's one of the reasons why I'm moving to graphite powder, because this metallic, although it is the best colorway to go with, white gloss base coat, metallic overcoat, that is the best colorway to go with. There is just too many problems that come with it that graphite powder can do almost just as well, maybe even better to some people's opinion. That's why I'm moving on to graphite powder and moving away from the white gloss to metallic. I'm still going to be using it for some projects, but most projects I'm going to be using graphite powder only. And now last but not least, we have the assembly of it all. What do I say in every single one of my videos, y'all? If y'all not new, get yourself some Loctite super glue. I'm never gonna stop saying it. Get yourself some Loctite super Loctite. This is like video number what, 30 of me asking for y'all sponsorship. Y'all got my email. I love y'all Loctite, and I'll never stop loving it. So what I did with this Loctite, I glued everything on. Very simple. It's very point blank period. I had the file from Galactic Armory. I'll also put it in the description. It took me this long to tell y'all what the file was. It was pretty simple. I just looked at the reference picture, glued it on there. This one was a little bit hard to glue. I kind of glued it like a middle down to get this to not show, but the back of it kind of shows, but that's not anything crazy. And then all of this is glued all together with the reference picture, slapped it on there. Then this, and then we actually didn't glue the antenna on fully because look, we can move the antenna up and down. Come on, y'all. This is innovation, new technology. You feel me? We didn't glue that as well. We just made sure that can move up and down, but made sure it was secure enough to stay inside. And that was basically it for that. Now for the visor, getting into this visor right here was very, very difficult. My brother actually did this entire visor. If it wasn't for him, this helmet wouldn't even exist. He did the entire visor, and I'm about to get into now on how we made this visor work. So jumping back into Orca, I bet y'all didn't expect that. They give you a little visor cutout and you can size it to whatever size your helmet actually is. We sized it 95% to fit my helmet. I printed out this visor on my V3 Plus. I don't know if I have B-roll, but if I do, I'll show you guys as well as I'm talking about this. I printed out the visor. Now, once you got the visor down, I went on Amazon. I recommend going on Amazon. You can go on any site. Galactic Armory as well sells the visors as well that you can buy. I went on Amazon and I just got myself a cheap visor right here. It's very easy. I don't know if you can see through that right there a little bit. My brother has a way steadier hand than me. Y'all know this. I got carpal tunnel. I don't know how. I'm pretty sure I got carpal tunnel because I'm shaking every time I do it. So he had the scissors. He has a steady hand. He traced it out, cut it out, glued it in. When you're doing this visor, he messed up on his Mandalorian helmet a lot with the visor because the Loctite, like I say, it burns into whatever you're putting to mend it together. So it will burn through the visor and it will mess up the visor. I recommend if you're using Loctite to glue the visor in, to be very, very careful and to glue it in parts that you will not be able to see it, because inside of this helmet you won't be able to see the parts that he glued. But there is a point right here on this side that he messed up a little bit, and now the Loctite is permanently on there. It doesn't affect any of the vision. I wish I could show you guys the vision of it, because I actually will have some B-roll up of the vision of the helmet. It did not affect it at all, and the vision is very, very great. So I recommend go on Amazon, get yourself a visor, do the little cutout that the modeler hopefully gives you. I know Galactic Armory gives you the cutout that you can use. Get that cutout, draw it in, throw it in the helmet, and you're good to go. And last but not least, for the assembly, we have all the padding. Again, I went to Amazon, got me some airsoft helmet padding, threw it in there, and that's how it looks like there. You can go with any pattern you want to, but I just needed this to be comfortable on my head and not be too tight or too loose. And once I threw the padding on, it was very, very simple, and everything was very easy to put in, drag and drop, throw in. And without my brother, this wouldn't even be, the visor wouldn't even be on there. So thank you to him. And that was it for all the assembly to make this helmet finally come to life and look just like this. I know y'all been waiting for me to actually jump in the helmet to show y'all what it looks like to have it on. I hope you guys can actually hear me. I'm gonna hold the mic a little bit closer. My final thoughts on this helmet wouldn't have came to life if it wasn't for my brother. This was the last project we worked on together, so this helmet has a lot of sentimental value. Was this hard to make and do I regret it? Hell no. This was an amazing project. I learned a lot. I learned about the metallic, I learned about the visor, I learned about the printing process of it, I learned so much making this helmet, and I do not regret it at all. This was just a beautiful project. This is part 1 of the Boba Fett series. This is going to be the helmet video. I know y'all are waiting for me to drop all the other videos. I'm gonna get them out as fast as possible. My final thoughts on this helmet: this was a very fun project to make. I encourage you guys to go make a helmet just like this one, because these helmets are so fun to see actually come to life. Like, this is probably my favorite, coming from my Echo helmet, my Spider-Man helmet, my Prowler helmet, even my Bullseye helmet. Seeing these helmets like go from a raw print to come to life, it's just like an experience of no other. So this was an amazing project, and with that being said, that is gonna do it for this video. I thank you guys so much for watching this video. As I always say, without you guys' support, I wouldn't be having the motivation to keep getting these videos out and to keep grinding and to keep going if it wasn't for you guys. Thank you guys so much for being here for this entire journey. Like I said, this video is part 1 of 8 videos that I will be dropping on this entire process of how I made this entire cosplay. So stay tuned. I have so much content coming on the way. I have so many new projects coming on the way. Just stay tuned. I'm gonna try to go crazy this summer and get as much content as I can out to you guys as fast as possible, because I am trying to go for 2,000 subscribers. So thank you guys so much for rocking with me, and we're not gonna keep this outro too long. With all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this entire video. Thank you guys so much for watching. As I always say, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, your night, whenever y'all motherfuckers is watching this video. And as always, keep designing, making and building, and I'm gonna see y'all in the next video. Peace.